Well, good evening all you shooters and reloaders out there. Fortune Cookie 45LC coming to you from the Hot Lead Zone. And this actually is chapter 2 of our video on Savage Model 11 VT. And you might have a question that you got a new rifle and what's the best way to condition the barrel or to get the rifle ready to start shooting, because you've heard that there's lots of ways to condition or get that rifle ready to go. Well, here are some suggestions. The quality of our rifle barrels varies. If our rifle is mass produced like this Savage Model 11 VT, well, it's not a custom barrel that's in the four-figure price range. So what happens is we don't need to do as much to get this rifle barrel conditioned as a very expensive barrel, so that a good thorough cleaning, the way we normally clean our barrels, is called for before we start shooting it. Now, I'm not trying to disparage anyone's particular brand or price range of rifle, because turns out that the manufacturing today can be very good and produce high quality barrels and rifles at a very reasonable cost. So here's what you do. You go ahead and run a brush through your bore with some of your favorite solvent, like I use Ed's Red now, and it's really good. Anyway, run that through there about 5 or 6 times, couple of charges of Ed's Red or whatever your favorite solvent is, and then run some patches through and get the bore dry. And then look at the muzzle, because you'll learn some things about how your rifle's made that makes a difference in accuracy. Notice the crown on this barrel is nice, but also notice that the actual crown, the opening of the barrel here, is very sharp. And in fact, if you use a rag and kind of rub on that, the rifling right there is sharp enough that it'll cut little pieces of your rag off, and you'll get little threads hanging there. Well, what that means is that that exit on that barrel is very delicate. And if you damage that very sharp corner at all, it'll affect accuracy. So therefore, you got to be very careful when you shove a rod through this from the breech end, that rod doesn't rub on that 6 o'clock position and round that rifling off there a little bit, or round the exit off on that crown. Now, if your crown is beveled a little bit, then the actual exit is at the inside of the bevel, and it's protected against damage to the outside edge. Well, this Savage has that very delicate outside, so we have to take extra care with this particular rifle. Now, you won't hear this on any other YouTube video in this detail, but you really do have to look at that. Now, also notice something very important, and you see that there's no copper streaks in there. Now, the heavier the copper streaks you have in there, the more you have to remove that copper. If you have heavy copper fouling, it will affect your accuracy. And in fact, if you're shooting a rifle and you notice that your favorite loads don't shoot as accurately as they normally do, that's a clear sign you got to go in there and get that copper out. And there's lots of good copper removal solvents around, so we won't go into that. Now notice that Savage does a real good job here. There's no copper streaks in that barrel. No doubt they did test fire this rifle, because you can see signs of that on the bolt face. But there's no fouling of copper worthy for us to go ahead and do any copper removal at this time. So basically, I've cleaned this rifle real well, like you would do also, and now we're ready to go to the range because the barrel is ready for shooting. Now, of course, if your barrel is a custom barrel on a custom rifle, then what you need to do is to always consult and work closely with the gunsmith that made that rifle for you as to what's recommended to properly condition the barrel on your particular rifle. Follow those instructions to the T. However, to apply those same procedures to our factory mass-produced rifles is not necessary. Doesn't mean you can't do that, but you're not dealing with a barrel that's in the 4 figures that they do the micro assessments on and all this kind of thing. So this is a good workable way to get your rifle ready to shoot. Now, one last thing is, before you go to the range to start shooting, you should go ahead and make sure all your action screws are tight and all your scope mount screws are tight and this kind of thing. Even go ahead and bore sight your rifle either before you go to the range or bore sight it at the range just before you fire your first shot. And we've got a video on bore sighting already. So now we're ready to go to the range and start shooting. But the thing is, we have our factory ammo. We should get some reloads together to also go to the range, because the idea is to get fire-formed brass to begin our reloading for this rifle and get precision ammo put together.